Hi. So this is the topology that we currently have set up from our last VPN lab. Read-write DC01, running the domain controller DNS DHCP. I have it set for 192.168.0.10. Connected to server 1 with an internal address and external. External is 10.152.70, connected to the MBCC virtual switch, and I have a Windows 7 client. So the same topology you have, same topology we used for the other VPN labs, setting up a basic BBTP VPN. So for the next set of settings, I already have this set up. I just want to go through and show you each of the important settings to make an SSTP VPN work. So on this DHCP server, or domain controller, I also have an enterprise CA. And on this server 01, running router mode access, I've got IS installed and the certificate revocation list distribution point has been configured. And I also have on this machine, I have a certificate installed for routing mode access. So I need that certificate to work. For secure sockets layer, you need a certificate installed on the remote access server. And on this client, to get it to work, it needs to trust the CA. And it also needs to be able to access the certificate revocation list. So I'll go through the settings and take a look at each one of these. So this is the writable domain controller. Let's make it full screen. And I've already gone in and installed the certificate authority. Here it is. Everybody in the class already has a certificate authority set up, it's the enterprise CA. And the only thing that you need to change in here is you select properties, go to the extensions, and make sure that there are two settings here. This one, the file. You can see I've got file written, and then there's 2 forward slashes, then 2 backslashes to the UNC path of a share set up as CRL $. So it's chain-server01 CRL $, and then CA name, CRL name, suffix, and delta CRL allowed.crl. So what this is a file location on the network that it can automatically publish the certificate revocation list. If you didn't have this file location, you could copy the certificate revocation list, put it on a USB stick, and walk it over to the other server that has this location. So if you have a website, this is where the file is being pushed to. It's this web server. This is to the same CRL directory. And the web server has the URL chain-server01.coffee.local. And again, CA name, CRL name, suffix, and the delta CRL allowed. Okay, so if I was to make one of these, and again, this is what it would look like. I have to actually type in file, 2 forward slashes, 2 backslashes to the server name. So the server name, backslash the share name, and then you can insert each of these variables by typing insert for the CA name, select the CRL name suffix, insert it, and the delta CRL allowed. And select, you put your cursor at the end, and type CRL. And you say OK, and that'll insert that as another file location. You'll notice that none of the options are selected when you create a new file location, so you have to publish the CRL to this location and select all the settings that are available. Okay, so I don't really have this location. That was just for demo, so I'm going to remove it. But that's what you would do with your own server name. You'll also see that there's the HTTP settings, and you add that the same way. Simply add it and type HTTP, and then you would write the FQDN of the server, and then the directory that you on that server that you have available. Then insert the CA name, insert the CRL name suffix, and delta CRL allowed, and then .crl on the end again. And you say OK. This time you would select two settings, include in CRLs and include in CDP extension of issued certificates. Okay, so when you go to apply this, it's going to restart the service. And those settings are in there now, but it doesn't publish a new revoked or new revocation list. So you click on Revoke Certificates, you select all tasks, and there's Publish, and you can publish a new certificate revocation list from this point. Just a new CRL. And if it happens quickly like that, then it's fine. If it fails, then it's because the directory that you're trying to copy these to under extensions, this file location here, has to have write access. And this is on my other server. I'm on the read-write DC right now, but on server 01 it has to have a share with named CRL $ that has write access. So if yours fails at this point, check your other server and check for this directory for write access. So I'll go over and show you what I mean. Oops. So this is server 01. If I go to the directory that I've shared, it's in inetpub www.root. So I've already gone ahead. I have IS installed on this server. So before I started the demo, I went into Server Manager and I just went into Add and Remove Roles, and I selected the web service right here. So I installed the web server. Okay, so I installed IS already, and that gives me a web service, and it creates this directory automatically, and this is the default folder for the default website. And this is the default page that opens up. So because the website's here, it goes to inetpub www.root is_start. This is a local directory though, I just opened it on my C drive. If I type HTTP localhost, brings up the same default file because it goes to www.root and it looks for the IIS default file in that location right here automatically. Okay, so I've got the CRL folder, I created it, and I have properties and sharing. I shared it as CRL $, and for the permissions I gave everyone full control. Because it's further restricted under the Security tab with the NTFS permissions. Here I've only edited and changed one thing. I added this network group, and I gave them, they'll have read access by default, read and execute list folder and read, and I gave them the additional edit or write access, sorry. So under here I added the network group and I selected the additional option for write. And if you've done those things, and you have network access, so you can ping and the name resolves, and it should work. It should publish that certificate revocation list, which is this file here, and the delta CRL to this location. Okay, so once they're here, the other thing to check is in your web server. Open the web server here. This is the default site, and under the default site I have this folder which contains the certificate revocation list. The default site itself, I looked on a TechNet site because mine wasn't working for the revocation list when I first set it up. There was a couple of things they suggested doing, and I turned these on and it works, so I'll show you what they are. One of them is directory browsing. They suggest enabling directory browsing on the site. And directory browsing is exactly that. It allows directory browsing. So if I type localhost, I go to the CRL directory and enter, it allows me to browse the directory. Without directory browsing enabled, I would get an access denied page right here. But by enabling directory browsing, it shows me a list of the file contents, and if there were folders, I could actually browse the directories, just like the name suggests. The other option is, once you have directory browsing enabled, is under the configuration editor. You'd open this and go under System Web Server, Security, and then what? Request filtering. Okay, so system.webserver security request filtering. And when you go into here, this allow double escaping will be set to false. So I changed mine to true. I didn't look up what this actually does, but they suggested that I do it, so I did, and it worked. And that's it for the web server. The verification list should be accessible to your users. Okay, so go back to the read-write DC. We can cancel this, we're done. And under certificate templates, you'll see that I have a computer version 2 template, and it works for server and client authentication. I created that by going in here and manage, and I selected the computer certificate, and I duplicated it. I duplicated it so it would be a schema version 2 template instead of version 1. And the reason why I did that is so that under this security tab, I would have the option for authenticated users to check off enroll and auto enroll as well. So in Active Directory, we can configure auto enrollment and auto enroll computer certificate. Other things you can do under here is to add the original computer certificate as being superseded by this one. You can check that the application policy lists server authentication, which is required for your server, for the certificate to work for SSTP on the server. Give it a different name. Call it version 3. Validity period 1 year is fine. I'm going to publish it to Active Directory. I'm going to leave that off this time. You can check this off to allow the private key to be exported if you like. It simply allows the certificate that the users get to be exported. Leave it off. I'll leave all the rest of the settings. Actually, except for this one. Use the fully distinguished name and get the information from the DNS name rather than leaving it to supply in the request. So this will be automated, and the name that the certificate gets will be the fully qualified name of the server. If you want to use a different name on the external side of your remote access server, then you should select this option to supply in the request, and you can change the common name when you install the certificate. Okay, so those are the settings for the template. I can just say OK. Creates this version 3 template. I can close this. Now your template, and that one I just created, isn't available until you actually go to certificate templates and you select new, certificate template to issue, and then I can select it from the list. And now I've got a version 3 template available. Okay, so those templates are available. Next thing we can do is in Active Directory, Group Policy Management Editor, and open this here. So you can either edit the default domain policy if you want to apply this every place in the domain, or you could create a new group policy and apply it to a specific OU. I'm just going to put it right in the default domain policy. It's up to you how far you want to apply it. So this is for auto-enrollment. Auto-enrollment isn't necessary for this to work, it just makes life easier. It makes it easier because the certificates already get installed on both the client and the server. And you don't need a certificate on the client, but you do need it to trust the certificate authority. So if you can make it automatically trust the certificate authority, it simplifies your setup that much more. So I didn't dig down to get here. So your computer configuration, Windows, security settings, public key policies, and you'll see computer or certificate services client. Enable this. Say OK. And auto enrollment, sure. Enabled. Renew. Update the certificates that use templates. Then under automatic certificate request settings, we want to have an automatic certificate request for the computer certificate. There we go. So close this. Done with the group policy editor. And we can go over to your server 01. Now server 01, I'll just go in here and show you my network interfaces. I have one connected to the external network, and it has a 10152 address for the college. I've got Google's DNS server set up. And then the internal NIC is set to 192.168.0.1, no default gateway, and set to the internal DNS. I only have one DNS server in my setup. I don't have two. I don't use a secondary. There's no DNS server on this machine. Okay, so if that's correct, and I can bring up the command prompt and ping shane-rwdc01.coffee.local, and I got a response, so name resolution's working. GP update/force, and I'll get an updated policy from the group policy object that we just created. Okay, computer policy is updated successfully, and the user policy updated successfully. So great. And close these. I have a certificate management console already created. I'm going to open this. You can see that the computer certificates are listed here, and I've got two certificates now, since one of these is likely my version 3. Yeah, so version 3, and the other one's the old one. You'll get a new certificate from your certificate authority that quickly. If it doesn't work that quickly, then something's wrong. Go back to the certificate authority. You can open the certificate authority console, and you can see issued certificates, and you'll see a new certificate here. There's the computer version 3 template. Okay, that was just issued. Great, so we know that worked. You'd want to do the same thing to your Windows 7 client. You'd want to move it to the inside network and GP update/force and to get a new certificate. Once you have the new certificate installed on the Windows 7 machine, you'll want to open up the local computer certificates on that machine and check to see if you have one. So you should have a certificate named after the server. It doesn't list in this type of certificate the fully qualified name, but it does use the fully qualified name when you go under the details. It's in here. Okay, coffee.local. The other thing to check is under Trusted Root Certificate Authorities that you can find your own certificate authority under the Trusted Root. That has to be there as well. So if you have all of that set up, we're almost there. We just have to go to server 01 again and go into routing remote access on the server. So inside of routing remote access, when you select properties, go to the security tab, and you'll see on the bottom the SSL certificate binding. And you have to pick, I've got the old certificate and the new one. You'll have one. You pick that new certificate that you have from your certificate authority. And if you look at the details of that certificate and you scroll down here, you'll see certificate revocation list distribution point. And you scroll through that, you should be able to find the entry relating to the HTTP location of the certificate revocation list. And if it's not there, when the client goes to connect, it's not going to know where to find the revocation list, and your connection will fail. So check for this, make sure it's there and that it's up to date. If it's not, you have to perform this procedure again and get a new certificate. But it should be there. And this will restart the service. And the other thing, before I leave this, I'll just show you the firewall settings. Is it Windows Firewall? No. Advanced settings. So there's some inbound rules on the server. If I scroll down through, I have the firewall turned on, so I have to make sure that GRE PPTP is used for the point-to-point tunneling protocol. But this one right here, so secure sockets tunneling protocol is allowed inbound. So we should be good to go. I'll go back to the Windows 7 machine, and it's on the external network at this time. And bring up my network and sharing center. So I have this SSTP VPN, and I have a local connection. Now, if I check the status of the local connection, you see that I have a valid IP address on the external network. So check for that. And the SSTP connection, you'll already have a VPN from your previous labs, but you need to change this so that the host name resolves to a name. If you leave it as the IP address, then it doesn't match the certificate and the SSTP will fail. So you have to use the name. So what I've done, if I go up here, I can ping chain-server01.coffee.local. And I get a response from the external IP. When you ping to try it, it's not going to work because the external DNS for the college doesn't resolve this name back to an IP. The quickest and easiest way just for our lab is to edit the host file. So that's in drivers.etc. You open the host file in Notepad, and you can add an entry. On the end, 10.152.70.114 is my server. You just need one space. I've tabbed over, but you need a space here, and then the name of the URL that you want to go to, or the fully qualified domain name. And save that. And at that point, that gets cached, and when you ping the name, it'll result back to the IP. Okay, so the name has to match, and then under security, you can change the security to the list SSTP. Otherwise, if SSTP doesn't work, it'll go to PPTP and you'll connect successfully, but you won't see the error message. So change this to be SSTP, say OK, and you can use the same properties that it had before and it should connect successfully. All right, so thank you.